Welcome to Sound Signals, where we dive into the world of art through conversations with artists shaping it. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Clara Varas, an artist whose work draws power from the everyday, revealing how ordinary materials and moments can carry profound meaning. Born in Havana, Cuba, and currently based in Miami, Florida, Clara Varas creates hybrid works that merge painting, sculpture, and installation to explore the complex themes of migration, gender, displacement, and the concept of home. Her practice, intuitive and rooted in abstraction, challenges the traditional boundaries of painting through the use of unconventional and often discarded materials such as household plants, fishing line, broken furniture, textiles, and worn clothing. These objects, marked by their previous use and history, become active participants in Vera's visual language, embodying narratives that bridge her Cuban childhood with her lived experiences in the United States. Vera's chaotic yet poetic assemblages evoke both humor and tension, serving as stand ins for the figure or the self while probing the thresholds between stability and instability. Through her ongoing, ever evolving installation, she redefines the relationship between interior and exterior spaces, between belonging and displacement. Her work has been exhibited widely across the US and abroad, including the Frost Art Museum, Orlando Museum of Art, and Dimensions Variable, among many others. A Cintas Foundation Fellowship finalist and Ellies Creative Award recipient, Varas continues to push the language of abstraction into new, materially rich territories where memory, identity, and place intersect. Varas, thanks again for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Well, we'll jump in right away. I noticed that your work often blurs the line between painting, sculpture, and installation. How do you define painting in the expanded field within your practice?
Uh, well, I guess I don't try to define painting. I guess that's part of the basis of it. And to me, the expansion of painting began. Well, I would say when I was a broke art student in New York, and like I didn't have uh, I couldn't afford canvas and materials. So I started thinking, well, I have this whole city with, a bunch of stuff everywhere. So let me go out and, just grab whatever I could paint on, whether a mattress, a headboard, broken chair, furniture. So that got me thinking well, okay, painting has this capacity, to be something that's not on a wall or something that's confined to just stretchers. So I had this thing I could play with, and kind of make it my own. And I didn't feel so constricted by this thing having to be on a wall. It could be anything. So it's that's what it is to me in my head.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that. I love that. Your origins of working with these materials that you found in the street and pushing the boundaries of painting. That is very exciting. Because you're making your own visual language, so it becomes like an extension of yourself, and that is very powerful. And these materials that you find, they're found, discarded. How do you select these objects, and what role does their past life play in shaping your work?
Well, a lot of times I find it twofold. So, question of many layers. Sometimes I'm working on something in the studio, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, I think I want this painting to stand up. I want the viewer to see the back of it, or so I'm. So then I go out there and I think, okay, well, maybe a table leg, maybe some kind of base, an old dresser. So I'm looking for this thing where I can kind of build a painting and not paint a painting, if you will. And then also other times I'm just out there and I spot something that'll kind of get my mind going, and it's just something I can visualize and work with. And other times, then things are just hanging out by the studio, and these objects kind of like, they find you in a way, or they find me in a way. And then I'm like, okay, well, this can work here, this can work there. And, sometimes it's their previous life is repurposed into maybe a bracket to hold something else up, or something to wedge in between things. So as far as their life, their previous life, sometimes it's something that I want the viewer to think about, whether, and I'm not so tied to the notion of what it meant to me. It's more of like a way to, especially when it's something familiar, like a coffee pot or an espresso, a cafeteria, cafetera, or something that means something in terms of identity to certain communities. And so it's between what it means to me and then what it means to the viewer. It's like I give it to them for them to, you know, what does it mean to you now? So it's sometimes it's important, sometimes it's not. It's, in other words.
Nice. Yeah, and I appreciate how you're using like the history of these materials, and instead of erasing it, you kind of work through it through this fluid process. It's reminds me a lot of like these ideas of migration and displacement as central themes in your art, how you take something that's discarded and you give it new life, very poetic, sort of try to reconstitute their purpose. And I really find that to be also kind of very special, when we're looking at your work and considering that you're Cuban heritage and you live in Miami. I wonder how does that influence your exploration of home?
Well, there's certainly the aspect of having been born in Cuba. My family migrated here. I was very young. I was around 7 years old. So definitely that's something that I carry with me in terms of, past childhood in Cuba. So that's something that is makes it into the work, or it's definitely baked into the work, whether consciously or subconsciously. And but also it's a play between that and my immediate surroundings, where the area where the work is in, that also, makes it into there. So it's kind of like this language between the past, the present and future potential. So I would say it's something like that.
Nice. That's really sort of interesting to think about, considering that how we look at time. I think that for the most part, it's like time is so fluid that you always want to kind of grab onto it. But you mentioned that your works are never fully finished, which is kind of goes back to the idea of time. How do you approach that idea of impermanence and the continual evolution of your practice?
Yes. So a lot of times I use like food items and stuff like that. So that's definitely something that evolves and has its own life and change within an exhibition or an installation. So there's that aspect. And then, so in a way, that thing is constantly changing. So there's really no finish. There's like a constant, you know, change and evolution of that item. And also, I kind of like the idea of these some assemblages and stuff to kind of reflect where site specificity. So, like, I may have something that I finished in the studio, and then it goes out into the world. So that totally impacts it and changes it. And then there's the specificity of that site, where sometimes I collect, stuff that's around that specific neighborhood where the work is at, and then I rework and put that back into the work. So I mean, to me, I guess I carry this idea of like, does it ever have to be finished? or can it just keep being this kind of living record of of where providing clues as to the area where it's at, and just keep living in that way.
Yeah, that's really sort of also too very unique is that like the idea of the objects or the installations kind of just being comprised of these objects that change in different contexts and what they mean can signify different sort of ideas to people depending on, like when they see it, what they think about it, and when they use it or when they kind of let it go or bring it into their home. But also too, the notion of like humor and chaos are kind of like elements that also kind of make it into your work. What draws you to like these emotional or visual contradictions, like working with these two extremes?
Well, yeah, chaos and humor is such a part of life, and like it's especially it's a lot of times how we relate to each other, and especially humor. So it's I used to think that like I could like have like your life, here's your life, and then here's your practice, and that these things could be kept separate. Okay, dedicated time for practice, but more and more, especially as I get a little older, I realize that you know artwork is not something like separate from life. It's not something that, to me anyway, that I can't do that. I don't really work that way. Sometimes like the chaos, like the work comes when life is often at its most like chaotic state, right? And so between the chaos and everything, there's whether you can seek out 30 minutes or a couple of hours, that's when the work happens. So I guess in a way it's like the chaos and the humor and the irony and everything else that happens in life is like just automatically baked into it,
Yeah,
and so it's only natural that the work reflects that.
definitely. Yeah, 100%. I think that the kind of the pressure of just like multiple things
And just multiple things at once. It's always either nothing or everything at once, right?
yeah, or everything at once. And, sometimes you have to kind of just, step away sometimes to sort of reflect. They almost become like meditations, like these meditations about life, right? Like about just like existing. What does that even mean? But can you talk about maybe more like specific work or exhibitions that you felt the materials kind of were clearly reached a sort of a parameter that you were kind of expecting, or how they embody like these themes of instability and resilience in your work?
Sure. I believe for the Florida Prize, and it was in at the Orlando Museum of Art. I did this installation in the space that they provided there, and it was very really cool because I could I get this whole room to or this whole like kind of L-shaped thing to like do an installation, and there was this work that sometimes my work goes through different iterations, depending on where like for example sites goes back to site specificity and how I want to change that work at that moment. And it's a work called let me see, it's Untitled Chandelier. And so this work was like it was a chandelier, but it was a very false chandelier, right? Because it was composed of all these like materials that are very quotidian, like everyday items having to do with the home, or or yard work or tools. It was composed of like it had these like a lampshade, a sweeper, and like some old T-shirts, and the flower base, and then there was this jersey, this football jersey that said Lions, right? So it was that whole idea of especially like kind of like surviving a hostile work, a hostile home environment, or and then especially with the Lions jersey, it's so like this perpetual beast that's out to get you. So I had this whole idea of resiliency and instability. I remember there was the specifically the flower base was hung on this piece of wire rack that had been cut. But since the thing was so high up in the air, like the wire rack kind of disappeared and it looked like the flower vase was floating. And I remember everybody asking me, "How is that thing up there? Is it gonna fall, or it's how did you?" So it's like kind of those unexpected things that happen, and also this whole idea of danger and this idea of something could just fall and crumble at any moment. But of course, it wasn't. I lose a lot of sleep on like how to attach things and how to bracket things down. So, but it had that notion of it could just fall apart at any minute.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this idea of how people respond, like the community responds to your installations, I think I want to segue into that. I think you brought it up a little bit, and I want to kind of maybe go off on that tangent. Like, how do individuals engage or respond to the environments that you create? If you can maybe just elaborate on that.
I think people see a lot of very everyday things and very familiar things in a way that kind of like they they kind of cross identity, they cross culture, they like for example flower pots and broken furniture. So I have a lot of people going up to me like, "Oh, my grandmother had something like that in her living room," or "I grew up with that specific broken radio," or "I grew up with that fan." And so it's this whole idea of thinking of the past and you know while being in the immediate here and now, and the potential for the future. And I think that's how people relate to that. you know and so I mean it's and also I have a lot of conversations with people when I call these installations painting, and they're like, "Oh, but that's not painting, that's a sculpture." I'm like, well, maybe a sculpture can be painting, and maybe painting can be painted with paint, and maybe sometimes it's painted with objects, right?
Yeah. No, that the way in which people convene in your exhibitions and sort of point out objects that they maybe have in their home is a kind of beautiful communal kind of interpretation, bringing people together as a community and trying to relate to each other, even if it's just through mutual objects and things of that nature. I think that's a kind of beautiful way to kind of invite people to be present in the
Definitely.
space. That's
It's
really nice.
a way to keep like open-endedness of the conversation, and so yeah, it's a very cool feedback about what objects can do, and the ability of painting to be something outside just like a wall, and what else, like kind of like what else can painting be, right?
Yeah. And yeah, and maybe also like developing your own like dialogue, your own vocabulary, as you mentioned earlier, with the objects that you sort of choose to put in your installations or in your paintings as well. How do you balance that intuitive mark making, right? That can be like associated as like making a mark is by the objects that you choose, or even like the conversations that people have in this space. Yeah, how do you balance that intuitive mark making and with conceptual like rigor, like with your kind of practice?
I mean, I guess it's not really something that I set out to do, kind of balance. concept with intuition. I guess I it's probably something that happens yeah, that happens organically in the work, in the process, in the process of making the work. Like I tend to think a lot more compositionally, in terms of like groupings or lights and darks, and so I guess it's become something so second nature, intuitive to me, that um I can't say I seek a balance with those. Just something that happens naturally, I suppose.
Oh, it just kind of comes together like naturally. It just kind of a fluid. It's like a fluid
Yeah,
kind of
yeah. It's
process.
like it's one thing speaks to the other and speaks to what's next. Other than thinking compositionally, then you know, yeah, I think it's all baked in.
Nice. Yeah, I like how you refer to it as like cooking or kind of
Yeah, something
I
like cooking.
really kind of like relate to that. It's just natural. Like it's you just kind of
Absolutely.
do it intuitively. That's a really kind of really
That's a
nice
good.
metaphor.
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And also too, like going a little deeper into like these notions of like media specificity, like painting and sculpture and installation. How has your relationship to each medium kind of evolved over time?
I guess if there ever was a difference to me between the mediums, um, I don't think for me that I think I look at them more in terms of like being these different tools that serve a purpose, and like for me the purpose is to make the work, and and whatever is at reach, sometimes um an object will work, more for whatever specific thing I want to do, but sometimes paint will work better. So sometimes it's a two-dimensional thing, sometimes it's a three-dimensional thing, but I tend to think of it all as painting in the end. So like whether I'm right or wrong, or it doesn't matter. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's I just go through, just put it together, and it's just the purpose of making the work. I don't think
Mhm.
for me, I don't think I need a difference between them, or I don't feel a difference between them.
Yeah. So you just see them as like categories that you kind of pick and choose
Yeah,
from.
like you pick
Yeah.
and choose, and just to get the work done.
Yeah. And talking about that, like once it is done, what do you expect viewers to kind of get from the work or like what like, especially as it concerns like identity, migration, and like the idea of home.
I suppose like what I'm interested in is the conversation, and whatever specific I think it's between a personal the personal experiences of uh, migration to me, of migration and immigration to me, and the collective sense, the collective experience of migration, and what these objects mean within the community. But it's also a way to say, we're all linked in some way, whether through these experiences, whether through the things we use, or even the things we discard. And so it's important for me to keep the conversation going, and to kind of like, you know, put these things out in the world and give it to the viewer, and to have that conversation that's still open ended, that can keep going. Like it never has to be finished in. as in a way, so it's yeah. So between the personal and the collective, keep the conversation going. That's my sense of what I want the viewer to get from the work.
Yeah, like this no, also too, like the way in which like pe what people get out of it too, like these notions of home, like what does home or safety mean to people, also too, it seems to be like a or
Right.
maybe discomfort, like it just depends on the type of individual, like that sees it, or like what these objects mean, and what like people when they come together, what it could kind of.
And how, yeah, and how home is something that's constantly changing, right? That in our lifespan we're going to have many homes. So it's this notion of you know it's we're not tied down by place. It's something that the concept and the notion of home, I guess, is in an emotional sense where you feel the most you, where you feel like you can be your truest self, and how this concept of home is constantly changing, especially if you think about it in terms of gentrification, in terms of like when you talk about displacement. For me, it's not just something that uh, you need to have migrated from one country to the other or anything like that, or something like that. It's also within within contemporary life and the human condition as it is now, especially in a city like Miami, which like in every other city, they're talking about gentrification. So that's a displacement also, and we can also be displaced by weather events, by especially here in Miami, you're talking about like hurricanes, uh, fires. We've had that in what happened in California and everything. So there's all these different types of displacements, and there's all these different types of layers to it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. No, and the idea of like what you like, the notion of like what you like discard also too says a lot about someone too. Like it just kind of gives you an idea of like how they perhaps see themselves, or these reflections, like when they like showing the different side of an object. But that is really insightful. But anyhow, thank you so much for being here today, and I really appreciate it for letting us kind of learn more about your art practice and you and your studio. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me, and thanks for letting me talk a little bit about shop and my life. And so, thank you so much.
Thanks.